All set.
All right. So welcome, everybody. This is a budget workshop for the 2026 town of Manlius budget. And like always, people are available to join on Zoom, or they can watch on our YouTube or Facebook. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I want to let everybody know that we have been working on the supervisor's tentative budget. Tonight, we are going to create the preliminary budget, which is the process in town government to do a very initial budget and then to do a preliminary. Then there's a public hearing, and then there's the final budget. So that's the process that we're in the pieces of. This is the middle of the budget process. And we are hoping through the process today to find revenue, reduce expenses, whatever that is feasible to be done in a reasonable manner. So that the preliminary budget is closer to what the final budget will be. But we also want people to know that there is always some kind of an adjustment. Somebody finds a math error, somebody gets additional information. And so the final budget at the end may be different by a little bit. But if it is, that is announced in public and voted on at that final meeting. So everything is public with regard to any changes from what we decide today to what the absolute final budget is. So everything will be public that happens after today. Today's discussion is to tinker with the tentative budget to try to make improvements to that. So that the final budget is closer to where we want to be in the end. I also want to let everybody know that while we're not successful in passing the override of the tax cap at last meeting, we do plan to do that prior to the deadline because it is not really feasible to produce a budget that is under the tax cap. So that is a procedural issue. I think people have mentioned that it's a little bit more of a routine task to be done, but we do not believe that it is really realistic to come in under 2% with all that is happening in the world with the economy and inflation and the actual cost of things. So we will be scheduling that vote, and we will override the tax cap at the 19th meeting. So just to put that framework out there.
You mean the November 5th meeting?
No, it will actually be the one after.
Oh, November 19th. Okay.
Yeah. So I had hoped for the 5th, but it turns out it's going to be the 19th. So that is also to be another step in the budget approval process that we'll be doing. So those are my sort of opening remarks for this. What we wanted to do was have Maria Lenway, the comptroller for town Manlius, is going to overview some of the changes that have been previously suggested. So for all the time between the end of September till now, counselors, department heads, many other people have contributed ideas for how to improve the budget. Those things that were accepted, Maria is going to go through. And then the counselors will each, and the supervisor and anybody else who wants to on this side will suggest other changes that may be feasible. This is not a public hearing and there will not be public discussion with the audience. But we just wanted people to know that we are going to be planning to do a workshop. So this will be conversation amongst the people at the table, and we will be trying to improve the budget to the extent that is realistic. And Maria now will share some information regarding cuts or additional revenue that have been found so far in the past month.
So I took pretty much the departments that were at town hall. And I went through line by line back to 2023 for all their GL accounts. And there were several lines that I found that they didn't use all of their budgets from 2023 to 2025. So the overall cut that I had suggested was $32,143. John said just give like a number.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
And
So-
then the last slide was this one.
Okay, and then the fund balances. This is the fund balances amount that were at the end of 2024, getting us into 2025. This is how we started out before we got, the tax revenue. And the town of Manlius has a goal for 4 months of operating expenses, just in case something happens.
so, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about different cuts that people have suggested in addition to the items that were cleaned up that, Comptroller Lenway just reviewed. And discuss other possible ways that we might be able to modify the budget. So we're just gonna go around one by one and share ideas, and then we'll have, discussion, and we're gonna start with Kate.
So I was gonna start with Tom, but he's on the phone outside, so I'll start with Garum Group. And then maybe he'll be, oh, here he comes.
Mhm.
So, well, I'll just start with Garum Group anyway, just to, so I'm not harassing him as soon as he walks back in. So I did a review of the 2024, 2025, and 2026 Garum Group proposals. Line by line and compared them all. There are several areas that don't make sense, some that appear redundant, and others that are priced well above the market. And for the 2026 proposal, I was unable to make the math add up the way that they articulated. There was some arithmetic that was incorrect, where they multiplied out the number of users by a baseline number, and it did not total what they said that it totaled. So I'm concerned about the proposal overall, if those mistakes were present. I did also find that those same mistakes were made last year. And we did not catch it at that time. So the proposal says the amount is $370,940, give or take. When I added everything up, it was 380,000. So trying to figure out where that 9,000 and change went. By my estimation, it actually costs more than they said. So that needs to be figured out. And I just identified that late this afternoon. So I haven't been able to ascertain how that happened or if I'm perhaps missing something, but so first up is the Business 360 Foundations. This is Garum's proprietary managed service bundle. It's not a Microsoft product. So it includes things like their help desk monitoring, patch management, antivirus. The rate went up from $72.50 per user in 2024 to $85 in 2026, which is a 17% increase in those 2 years, even though the scope hasn't changed. Based on my research, most municipalities in our region are paying between $55 and $65 per user for the same coverage. So I've articulated a list that I can share with everyone to pose to Garum to ask them to explain all these things that I'll circulate to everyone and that we can send to them tomorrow morning or this evening, should we so choose. But I would like to ask them for a full list of deliverables and see if that we can renegotiate that per user rate. I believe that with the comparison, it would make sense to go out to bid for this contract after the beginning of the year. Potential savings could be between 13,000 and 22,000 per year if we were able to negotiate that amount. Number 2 was the overlapping security services. We're being billed separately for multiple cybersecurity tools, threat locker, endpoint detection and response, advanced threat protection for both computers and mailboxes, and segregated backups. In 2024, it appears to be similar protections under different names. It does not appear that we really need 4 separate products that all appear to do the same thing, or it certainly appears that there's overlap. we could keep one comprehensive endpoint protection suite and eliminate the rest. The potential savings on that would be 9,000 to 14,000 per year. Backup and cloud services, the cost for backups has increased by nearly 50% since 2024, from around 8,500 to over 13,000, although the scope remains the same. It looks like they've simply been rebranded as segregated backups. They initially indicated it as Datto, but it's just changed the name. We need to confirm it's actually being delivered and whether or not we're paying double for the same thing. Potential savings 2,000 to 3,000 per year. Microsoft 365 licensing, charging $7.20 for business basic and $15 for business standard per user. That's about 20% higher than 2024, but that could certainly reflect the increases in Microsoft pricing. But we could do a review of who actually needs full standard licenses. Some staff might be fine with basic. We could save between 500 and 1,000 per year if we reevaluate who gets which, whether it's basic or standard. Compliance scanning with reporting, that was added in 2026. It's $400 a year. Not clear why we need it. Security awareness training is $100 a year. But Microsoft 365 already includes that at no cost, so I don't think we need that. In 2024, Counselor Denton reviewed this contract, and I was able to touch base with her last week. And there were several costs that she recommended eliminating that we ended up purchasing, that we could potentially get rid of going forward. That would include $3,000 to $5,000 of costs. This includes SSL certificates, Foxit PDF software. So we need to see if those are really necessary. We need to figure out the math discrepancy. And then finally, in each one of these, in both 2020, in all of 2024, 2025, and 2026, there's a miscellaneous line item at the bottom, 5,000 in 2024, the 2024 budget, 5,000 for 2025, 7,000 in 2026, with no supporting detail. It just says miscellaneous expenses should something break. Did we spend that money? What was it spent on? What happens if it's not used? Did it roll over? Like, why do we have a slush fund with Garum? And so I'm curious, how far back does that go and what happened to that, to those dollars? So, in summary, we could save between 25,000 and 40,000 and possibly more if we figure out where that miscellaneous money went and if we can recoup those costs. And so that's it for me on Garum. I know that's a lot of IT stuff. I do have, as I mentioned, a letter prepared to send to Garum, so that we can get some of those questions answered. But it seems to me that we could certainly save money on our IT contract. Any questions from anyone on the Garum piece?
Have we,
For my conversation with Sarah earlier today, I have to have the numbers to carry tomorrow by 8:30.
I will, so should we suggest,
I think we could put a number in the preliminary. It doesn't mean it will be exactly what we got.
so it could go up or down depending on what we're able to figure out?
Mhm.
So,
Put it in, and then when they get back to us, I can adjust.
so do we want to? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware you cannot do any adjustments once I have the preliminary budget until after the public hearing on Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of it, that's all.
Yeah, that's would be something we would then amend in the final budget should we need to. So how much do you want to say if we could cut from it? It adds up to between 25 and 40,000, possibly more.
I don't feel comfortable removing any of the money right now until we have answers back from Garum and we have conversations with everybody to see how it's gonna affect anything operationally. And I mean, you spoke through all that stuff really quickly, and I'm not saying that the stuff that you're saying is inaccurate. I don't know.
No, I know it's
all of that
complicated.
research that
It
came
took
up.
me 2 days and I can't speak to every single detail. I am not an IT expert, but yeah, right. So it's,
So you
these are,
If you want to assume that there would be an adjustment in the final, we can do that.
so then we'll leave it alone for now and we'll reach out to Garum and find out more information from them. Any questions on any of the language I use, like not that I could really answer the IT specific questions, but
Well, I think it's good that you put a letter together, we can get the answers from here.
Yeah, could you share
Yep.
the document with all the stuff that you pointed out?
Yeah, I have a document prepared for all of us and then a letter to go to Garum so everyone can review what I analyzed.
For going through this. Caitlin.
Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot about IT, so that's great. And then I did have the opportunity to meet with, I'm Tom's liaison, our code enforcement officer, and he and I had the opportunity to speak. So Tom, if you wanted to share with everyone what we discussed, it would be very helpful.
Good evening. So looking through the budget, there was a potential saving of $2,075. It comes from the training, part of my training budget. There is a NFPA membership, and then we received the new York State code books, which was $1,000. We received those for free, and then ASCE books, which is general engineering standards, often referenced when plans are submitted. So we wouldn't be purchasing that. We'd have to then ask the design professional for the reference standard when they do that. And then there was another that then goes into additional reference standards, which then totals $2,075.
So Tom did a good job. We talked a couple times today and then met right before the meeting. There's not a lot of wiggle room in his budget in terms of the technology that he has available to him and the expenditures. Most of it is in the cost of hiring and having them work for us. And I personally don't recommend that we cut these amounts that Tom's identified because it would make the department significantly less efficient without very many dollars in terms of cost savings. So that was what, I just wanted to review that with everyone, that was what we identified, but I'm not recommending that we cut that from this budget.
But we are supporting the 2,075.
No, I'm saying we don't.
We could do the code books
For
that
$1,000.
we received, and then we could cut the reference standards. It's just going to be when we do that, we won't have the ability to review because we've had plans be submitted that reference an ASCE standard that we had purchased to show that the proposed construction did not meet that standard when we reviewed it. So we would have to then.
How much do the standards cost specifically?
Depending on which one it is, we purchase them for floodplain management, we purchase them for shallow foundation construction.
But we're talking like a few $100s.
Yes, I have 250, which would buy us a reference standard.
Can I just add that the revenue that Tom has in his budget covers all his expenses without property tax.
Absolutely. Thank you,
So I
Tom.
guess if you know the code books were already received for free, I'd say you get rid of it.
I can send that in a formal email.
And so that would still maintain the integrity of the online referencing that you mentioned earlier, if we got rid of the physical code book.
The physical code book, yes,
And so you're good keeping it just on your computer?
yes,
And how much did the code books cost?
$1,000.
All right, there you go, $1,000
Do
from
you know the
Tom.
line that's coming out of town?
That is D0053620404.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. That's it for me.
Sure.
So, thank you. I guess I'll address an increasing importance. So as liaison to receiver, assessor, and police, I'll start with the receivers. So the receivers budget for 26 is essentially flat. We came to agreement on a 3% COLA on the personnel line. So we're not looking to make any changes there with that department really. From what's been proposed by supervisor and what's going into the tentative. On the assessor side, 26 already has seen roughly 60,000 in reduction in budget this year for other reasons. So we're not gonna play with that one either. Which brings us to, one of the town's largest expenses, which is police services. And so again, I want to preface this workshop discussion with the fact that the chief responsibility of any government, large or small, is to preserve the health and safety of its people. So, and the government is essentially people. It's not stuff, it's people doing things. And so I want to just kind of highlight the fact that the overall town budget for the last several years is generally plus 60% or more. Personnel and fringe costs, that's what it is. It's people. That's what a government is. And that's what your services are all about, is people doing things for their community. Having said that, we, with the police department, we've been looking at the budget for 26 since about July. So we've been shaping away at our options and how to really deliver best for the town on what community members have told us repeatedly over and over is a highly valued element of living in this community. And not to cut or reduce services whatsoever. So we've taken that approach that that's the town's best interest. How can we do it in the most efficient way for the taxpayers? And so with Captain Stanton's assistance and Sharon's and everybody's at the department, we've been whittling away at it for months now. And so just following basic, responsible budgeting standards and practices, we've been looking at budget to actual routinely throughout the year to identify where we're underspending, overspending, where to allocate, reallocate, and where potentially there may be savings to look at the end of this year. Having said that, there are a couple more pay periods left in the year, so we don't have exact figures at this moment. So I'm not proposing anything that will go into the tentative. But we are looking at the 100s still, finding significant savings in there between, overtime and other items. But again, we're sort of circling the data as we get closer and closer to the end of the year as we run payroll a couple more times. But we managed to remove significant expenses for equipment, vehicles in next year's budget by reallocating funds from 25. So as the 25 fiscal year comes to a close, we're really kind of winnowing everything down with our actuals analysis to really carry over into 26 with, a much reduced police department budget from what we started with in July. So, in the 100,000 plus range of savings since July. So, without putting anything concretely into the tentative, it's going to go, for the public hearing and vote, but we're looking at next payroll period running on the 3rd. And we'll have something a little more concrete after.
So you're not proposing a change for the preliminary?
No, other than similarly to finding savings in Garden, we don't know what the number is going to be until we know, but there will be some saving, there will be significant savings.
This payroll is this.
So we'll have an analysis by the 3rd, some numbers.
So so Carrie, I guess what we're saying is that because you need to make a motion for each change.
No, we don't. As long as it's public and it's in the final budget when you
All right,
budget.
so then when we come to after the public hearing, there will need to be a line, there'll be Garham X amount, there'll be police overtime X amount.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Got it. So that's how this is working. It'll be the list of things that we will then include in the final.
Do you have any sense of an estimate?
I do, but I'm not comfortable, saying it, significant savings.
Okay.
But we've already achieved significant savings over what we began with in July.
How much have you cut already?
Like I said, just about 100,000, somewhere near there.
Anything else, Brian?
Assessor, receiver, and police.
Ingrid?
Okay. So we currently have an RFP out for a public engagement process for the town facility. As many folks know, there are significant repairs needed on this building as well as the police department. So the intent of this is not a public building project, but it is a problem-solving project. So we are looking for someone who will facilitate the public engagement piece, the steering committee, and a review of the studies that have been done. So this requires facilitation skills, project management, and strategy. We currently have 20,000 budgeted in the communication line and 50 under community engagement. My recommendation is to move that back to 25,000 to reduce the amount that we would be spending on that project and still go through the process that we promised the public.
So that would be reducing $45,000.
Correct.
And this is under the town board consultant.
Contractual.
Okay.
And we'll be evaluating options for how to manage that process without those professional services. So I'll be reaching out to folks in the community to see who might be willing to, we'll do like the whole process where we ask for volunteers to help us figure that out. We've had a lot of people approach us already and say that they'd be willing to help us do that. So we'll put that out and hopefully we can manage with residents in the community without having to pay professionals. So we still intend to undertake that process without the professional services associated with the RFP.
So my guess is we're gonna need to pay for at least a portion because of the volume of tracking and coordination involved. We may get volunteers to facilitate, but I don't want the expectation to be that we zero it out because I don't think it's realistic. But I think cutting back makes sense.
Anything else?
So the total impact was minus 45,000 between the,
Yeah. This might get you.
Okay, so I'm the liaison for fire EMS in the clerk's office. For those who don't know, we have very little, if any at all, say over the budget presented by the fire departments. So there's not much room to do anything there. And I think what are the 2 out of the 3 buildings do their budgets by April, so. All in. So they all do them by April.
They did,
Do
and
them
now Faith was gonna, people can do that.
in the future here, so that.
No, the fiscal year doesn't change.
Our fiscal year is staying the same, so we don't.
So that'll continue on April. We get those as long as we approve those contracts, we accept those budgets and there's no room to go through and make any realized savings there. As far as the clerk, they presented, a pretty, tight budget back in September when they did their proposals. I asked that they take a second look. And they feel that that budget it supports, a continuation of our current service level. And, I want us to continue to provide those current level of services. With that said, though, I did, take a look at and talk with the comptroller about the suggestions she made, in the clerk's office. And, pending further discussion, I don't see why we couldn't do that and find room in, several lines that, it's not a great deal of money, but, $6,195, the savings that we possibly we could do next time. And I don't mind having that number on there. And yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Mike, what is that reflected of? The 6195?
line by line.
Oh, it's a combination.
Yeah, it's just an overall that we would revisit after having some conversation.
There a way as the department head, I can get a copy of that? So I can take a look at it? No, I never received that.
I think it's. Maria's got a spreadsheet, so she'll be able to send you.
Yeah, that's,
Because you're gonna be getting this with the budget.
yeah, that's what, if I can just take a look at
I
that.
think like a chunk of that savings comes from you encumbering money, and then the right way to do that is to zero that line in the
And
next
that's
budget year.
why I want to look at it, because there was a reason as to why I encumbered some of the money from last year being my very first budget. And then this year, I had plans to do exactly what you just said. If I were to get my entire budget, it's whatever was there to get back and not encumber. So that's why if I could get that, I can take a look and send an email out explaining as to why things were encumbered last year. Thank you.
Okay. Recreation's budget. He's worked very hard on it. Her original budget, she always worked very hard on it every year. She does a great job explaining everything for why the dollar amounts are what they are, and where they came from. And originally it was only gonna go up, I think it was like 3 or 4% overall. She took, but given all the concerns and everything, we went back to the drawing board with it, and she took a hard look at it, and with some encumbrances and things going on in the increase in revenue that her department's been taking in year over year. From the increase in program participations, we were able to get her budget to essentially almost come in flat as it was in 2025. There may be around $1,000 increase, but between the encumbrances under personal services and program expenses and mileage, it's basically gonna be coming in at that rate.
That's true. Is there a number for Maria for this, or was it already included?
Most of the stuff is already included. There is a couple additional things happening that I'll get over to you soon.
Well, it has to be like then.
Oh, I know, like, at the end of the meeting, I will send it to you over there. Yeah, I mean, they're actually may even end up coming in under last year's budget if they, depending on how quickly the pickleball courts get in over in Manlius, you may be able to get more revenue in free pickleball. But we don't know about that. However, we're flat.
The revenue has been steadily increasing in recreation.
Her department does a very great job with everything, especially taking on Earth Fest and over at Green Lakes with single Manlius, and that program keeps getting bigger every year. There's so, I mean, we do a great job with.
So Emily, as to highway, highway has already made significant cuts. In fact, their proposed budget initially was under 2% increase. So we do see that there's a lot of care to keep the budget pretty flat in highway. We do have the amount of money being planned for salt is done differently this year than how it was done in the past. So it does show a significant reduction because we plan to use some fund balance that has accrued in the highway budget to pay for salt. So that is a bit of a change this year from previous years. So it looks like a significant reduction in the highway budget. In addition to that, given the concerns about the budget, the highway department has volunteered to contribute another $100,000 in the DP. That would be to reduce the amount of money in the budget for paving. That is always an optional figure. We'll take it out of the contractual amount. So, the amount we try to pay a certain amount of road every year because it always, if you just put it off, it gets worse and you need to then do more. So we try to always keep up with that. But to change a little bit here or there is not of magnitude to be a huge problem in the short term. But we do need to be aware that we have to continue that investment in infrastructure for it to maintain the quality that residents here expect.
I did one else mention, sorry. Additionally, with recreation's increase in revenue this year, that was more than what was expected. We are going to be having to set aside some money going forward to start saving for new facilities when we do start moving in that direction. So they have money for new fields and a new community room and spaces like that in the new building to help offset the costs to residents and taxes.
Oh, great, that's great. So what we can do for folks with an age.
That would be under the project.
Yes, we discussed it. We're sure on that.
All right, that's awesome.
And Rob, your account number 5110-400.
So if I may, Sarah, I just want to make a few comments on behalf, obviously, the elected official for the highway department. But it was 16 years. This is my 60th budget that I've actually put together. And as you know, and as I believe the board knows, there's three separate sections really to my budget. You've got the A budget, which controls the personnel side for Bob, myself, and for the secretary. And then you've got, your garage side of that, and that's maintenance of the garage, anything that basically goes on within the garage, as far as maintenance of the garage. And then you've got the DA, which is all the residents, which is typically our winter budget. And then you've got the DB, which is your summer budget. So with that being clarified, everything we do on my budget, right? So you guys know this, we budget off of averages. I have to take averages over a 10-year period to determine how much salt we're going to use, how much overtime we're going to have. So those are the two big main ones as far as the DA goes. Equipment. I usually do, and I bring to the board with my budget presentation, a 5-year plan of what we anticipate on purchasing over the next 5 years. Now, for instance, you look at some of the trucks that we've purchased in the last couple of years, plow trucks. So the cab and chassis have only gone up about $5,000, but the equipment alone that we put on those trucks from 2020 to 2024, it went up from $70,000 to that equipment to 117. So that's just on the equipment side. When you look at salt overall, last year, everyone knows that there was a salt shortage, which we could get into that whole thing. That was really, it turned out being more than it should have ever been to begin with. That was from the state because they determined at that time that we had to buy American only, and it was a glut for salt, and they just couldn't pull it out of the ground quick enough. That's really what happened. I don't anticipate that happening this year. The state contract, actually the county contract, which we are on, is going to be coming out of Ithaca. So it's a little bit closer than coming out of American Rock Salt, number one. And it looks like American Rock kind of took the western part of the state, and they took this part of the state. So I think that will help us. With that being said, from last year to this year, you've had a 21.69% increase in salt. And that affects every resident in the town of Manlius. So the only way we go reducing that cost is going to reduce the service that we do, right? That means we go out less, we do less. My phone rings off the hook. And when I made a promise when I took this job, I would be fiscally responsible to the residents and I would keep our roads safe and maintained. And that's what I continue to do. So I want you to understand, these costs are real, right? These are real costs that we're dealing with at the highway department. Things that we can't control are the contractual stuff for our employees. That's something the board does. So we do everything we can to try and keep this budget to a minimum, right? And again, we started off this year, we were a little over almost close to 4%, I think, when we first started. When I first started looking at this. And then obviously I spoke with you, sir. I spoke with John on trying to make some changes. Obviously, we've got some fund balance. Hopefully we can work for the salt budget. The things we can't predict. We could have a hellacious winter this winter and we're gonna be way over our budget, right? That happens. It's happened before. It could be way under too. So again, these are all the things that we have to budget for, right? So I guess my point I wanted to make here, and I want the board to understand, we can reduce service. We can keep cutting, right? You can cut your blacktop budget out. We are still the only, or one of the only town that actually still has our own paver. We still do our own road maintenance per se in Onondaga County. I believe there's 3, if I'm not mistaken. Clay still has one, and I think the town of Cicero has one. Again, when you look in relation to the size of towns, pretty much Clay's the largest. Then you've got Cicero, DeWitt, and ourselves, and DeWitt and ourselves are pretty close in size. So we're still able to go out and save our taxpayers a lot of money by what we're doing. You're looking at right now, the average cost to have a contractor come in is about $98 a ton for blacktop. To have them come in and lay it out. Where for us, it's probably right around $45, $50 a ton to have our guys go out and actually do this. It might be a little bit more than that now because prices fluctuate, obviously, with the summer as the price increases for oil prices. But I want to reiterate, we do everything we can to keep our costs low in the town of Manlius. Again, we could actually cut back, and the more we cut back, in 4 or 5 years from now, you're going to be doing total restorations of projects. And they're going to double in cost by doing that. So my goal has been always to try and do, Cornell Local Roads recommends that the highway departments in all of New York State do a certain percentage of roads. We have almost 12 miles of road. And they claim for us to do that, we're looking to do, right now we're doing about 4.5 to 5 miles of road a year with some sort of a surface treat or an asphalt. And to pave a mile of road right now is about $220,000. To put 3 inches of binder, 1.5 inches of top. So our costs are high. our costs are high to the residents. I, as a resident of the town, understand it. I just wanna make sure that the board understands. We're doing everything we can to try and keep these costs down. So we've done everything this year. And again, you know, we could cut the DB more. I mean, we could cut it. And where are we gonna go with that? In a few years,
Is
it's
that a
going to
long-term
cost us, right? So this is what I'm saying. And when you start looking at fire department budgets go up each year, they have equipment costs, right? They have personnel costs. We have the same thing that we're dealing with. I know at the police department, they deal with the same thing. We deal with the same thing. It's the cost, unfortunately, what gets handed down to us, you know what I mean, from the manufacturers, from our vendors. So, we're all fighting the same fight. But I want you to understand that we've done everything on the highway side that I think we can possibly do this year. So, I hope, in the future, obviously, you know, we'll see what happens here. But for everything we take away, we're gonna have to make sure that we put back, or you're just gonna fall farther and farther behind. Our equipment right now is probably one of the best equipments in all of Onondaga County. We keep our equipment in relatively decent shape. We don't have much downtime in our winter, for our winter snow removal. We don't have trucks being sent out all the time. We're doing our maintenance of our trucks. We're not having, you know, roads that aren't being plowed because we don't have trucks to get out there and do it, or we don't have manpower to get out there and do it. Because we got 23 hardworking people that come and work for us every day. They're on call 24 hours, you know, during the winter period. So I just want the board to understand where I am. I hope that in the next week or two, we look at that. I want to speak about these fire department budgets. We need to look at these when we're looking at our budget. Right, because when it comes down time to looking at overriding the tax cap, every district in the town of Manlius, water districts, sewer districts, all lighting districts, all those districts, all are part of that formula of 2%. I didn't hear that at all last week come out from anybody. You know what I mean? And that the residents need to know that. It's not just the highway budget, it's not just the police department's budget. It's all of those districts get put into that all at one time. And that's a lot, and people don't realize that. So it's important to understand, we're trying to give a level of service, and if it needs to, if we have to take a lesser amount each year, how long can we do that before the level of service actually becomes a problem?
I have a question. Rob, thank you so much for that. It's helpful information, and I appreciate everything that you do for the community and what you're working with us to do in your budget. I have a question on the fire piece. When the villages are, like, when they present their budgets and they say, oh, well, we were below the tax cap. That doesn't include in their tax cap the fire districts, because those are in our budget. Correct?
Well, the villages vote to override the tax cap, every one of them.
Right.
All three of them. And they have, and did it, and you know, as recently as just after our meeting, there was a village that voted to override their 2% tax cap. It's problematic when you contract with, the town contracts with the municipality. And then that municipality can tout not raising their taxes. But pass along some of those costs to the other municipality, i.e. like the town.
So our piece, so in their budget, they've got the village residents that they tax for the fire, their portion, and then
They tell us what it costs to cover our portion outside of the village.
outside the villages.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we pay like 67.
I have a hard stop due to childcare. But so I was just looking at kind of everything that was proposed. Everything that was actually proposed here tonight looks about to be a cut of.
John, before you say that, let me ask the team, do you mind? I mean, I don't want to misrepresent by, the wrong line, because is it helpful to you to know that within the 100s we're looking at? I mean, can we?
About, like, what's the figure?
130.
Okay, so that would bring just about the cuts that we've proposed tonight, that I think are generally agreed upon, to just about $300,000 of cuts. That'll be almost $200,000 of the A fund, which is the fund that needs the most cuts, and then a $100,000 from the DB line. So just as a summary, because I don't have any further changes or suggestions for the preliminary budget.
And this does not include Garrett, right?
Yeah, that doesn't include Garum. So, I mean, I appreciate everybody doing the work and trying to find, like, we said about 300,000, give and take. Obviously, thank you to the highway department, thank you to the police department for working so diligently to do that. But I just wanted to make sure that was, are there any other proposals that need to be considered by the comptroller prior to releasing the preliminary budget?
Just the ones that we have, I mean, I'll email you and.
Great.
go from there.
Oh.
More specific, okay. We'll sit right in.
You're on overtime.
Is there anything else that anybody would like to pose as an additional?
Just sorry to do this in a parting way. I do have to run. When we left the meeting last week, and we failed to override the tax cap, that really put the work on us to find like 1.5 or more million dollars in cuts. I'm happy we were able to get the 300. But I just wanted to comment on the panic of so many of our employees who watched this board fail to do something that we have done time and time again when there was absolutely no reasonable plan to get this under the tax cap. And so I just wanted to speak on behalf of the employees who have been worried about losing their jobs, who've been worried about getting fired or laid off or whatever, due to that cut or due to that vote. And I am happy that we have gotten to a point now where at least our staff will understand that that was never the intent. For whatever reason, the votes were made the way they were made, and that, we at least have a working preliminary budget that we'll be able to produce that makes sure that every one of our employees can feel a little bit better after this long week of just kind of being lost. So I appreciate
Mr.
that.
Supervisor, I'd like to comment on that. I'd like to say for the employees, there is never any intention of cutting staff and not passing the 2% cap. We asked the supervisor to postpone the vote so that we would have an opportunity to educate the public about why we would need to postpone that vote, and that was not done.
I'd just like to say, thank you.
Excuse
You have an
me.
email to the comptroller asking what the preliminary budget is as of Monday this morning. That's
I
great.
am speaking.
Have a wonderful night.
With personnel at 66%, there is much in the budget that we cannot impact without impacting services. And we are not hearing from the public that there is a desire to do that. This board is committed to continuing to serve this community. Safety is the most important thing. We are fiscal stewards, but we need to ensure safety, and that gets done by the work of this staff.
And safety includes everyone's role in this. Every department head plays a role in that, of course, including police, but not limited to police. The roads being safe is imperative. We've got several department heads that protect the integrity of our community, and we all agreed on that when we spoke about it.
So our apologies for the stress that caused. That was not at all the intention. The intention was to ensure that the public understood why the 2% tax cap is an issue. It is because of the costs of highway, police, and personnel. We are all experiencing cost increases in our lives. We're all feeling that squeeze. I think that Rob articulated that really well through the cost of the salt and paving, etc. So we support the work that is being done, and we want the public to understand. We had a very angry public here last week. It felt entirely inappropriate to then say, okay, we're overriding without first communicating so that there's a level of understanding as to why. So we plan to do some more of that at our next meeting next week, but I feel that it's important, based on the supervisor's comments, to explain and help the staff and the public understand why we chose to vote no at that time.
And that had been articulated prior to the meeting. It was clarified after the meeting. And the intent of we did not intend on voting no.
Okay.
It was
So I
under,
just- I
it
just
was
wanna-
our impression that it would be tabled. So
I
that was
just wanna
not
say that
anticipated.
We clarified that, so there will be another vote about overriding the tax cap. We want to make sure that everybody is clear that that will be an outcome. So that people don't have to worry about that. But that doesn't mean that the objective of today's meeting is to make a reasonable budget that can be published for the public to comment on next week. The public may still have additional suggestions which might be incorporated into the final budget. So that is the purpose of the public hearing.
Yep.
Is there any other business that people would like to discuss today?
No, other than I would love to re-highlight the fact that I preluded my comments with that again, our government is people doing stuff and the cost of employing people are high. And I have about 80 employees in my day job and right now we're negotiating insurance rates for another year and it's expensive. There's things that we just have to absorb and take because it's worth it to deliver on our mission and our purpose. So as government, we're here to preserve your health and safety and do a number of other things. And we will continue as we've done with police and assessment and receiver, and I'm sure other departments too, start early in the year and just look at it as we're gonna get to this point someday soon. We're gonna get to this point to have to make budget decisions. It's gonna be tough, but the result isn't gonna be below the 2% growth of, dictated by a tax cap, or it might, this might be an uncomfortable rate, but we are beholden to the mission to deliver the goods for our community. So that's what we're doing.
I want to add that, we're mandated to provide a minimum amount of services. We provide more than the minimum required by New York State. But in doing so, it provides a really great community to live in, to know that you can come to town hall and you can get a lot of these services. But more importantly, to know that if there's an emergency, you're gonna have the appropriate type of emergency vehicle show up to your home or your neighborhood or, the other side of the town that you live in. They're gonna be there. They're gonna be there timely and they're gonna provide a high level of service. It's not, I guess cheap's the word to provide personnel to departments in government. What happened during COVID is a lot of people walked away from public service. And they said, this isn't worth it at what we're paid. So we've seen, if you look at a lot of municipalities, from state government all the way down to villages, authorities and whatnot, there's been a lot of changes as far as what you have to do to be able to keep people coming in. When I was a firefighter, you would take the test 3 times, police as well. You take the test 3 times to get hired because there would be hundreds and hundreds of people lined up to take the service test. I'm seeing departments that used to have a hold on hiring because their lists were so big. Recruiting now, there's ads on TV to get people to take the test. So, if we want to keep the very good people that we have in all our departments here, we have to absorb some increases, and some of these personnel line items are unfunded, mandatorily required expenses that we have. So I have said it, I'll say it, only speaking for myself, I'm not willing to cut one employee. I'm on the record again. I don't want to cut one employee. I think all of the services we provide are very valuable. I've been a beneficiary of them before I was on the board. I chose to stay in this town because of what we can get as far as services. And I'm really happy with it, and I'm really happy to maintain those services. And I'm really proud that we were able to come upwards of $500,000 in savings. I don't like to call them cuts. I think they're savings. Because if you need something and you don't need it now, maybe we can get it next year, maybe we can save for it and get it 3 years from now. But I think there's some good work done on everyone's behalf. And I'm happy that we are gonna, we're working towards a final budget that preserves all of our services and all of our staff here in the town of Manlius.
So I think our objective from this evening was to come up with a reasonable preliminary budget. It will be extremely close to the final budget. There may be a few adjustments, but in terms of the big picture, it's probably not going to be very different. And I want to thank all of the department heads and the counselors who worked hard to look into details about things that may be able to be done differently. And say that the purpose of the overall budget is to ensure the quality of life for the residents of the town of Manlius. People move here because they like it here. We want to make sure that we maintain the level of service that people have become accustomed to and that they deserve. So that is the purpose of what we're trying to do here this evening. We thank you guys for coming, and we will be, the official budget will be available in writing tomorrow. And we will have a public hearing next Wednesday at 6. Thank you.
Do we need to adjourn or anything?
Motion to approve.